What's going on, folks? Nate here at Tool Dynaworks, and today I'm actually just going to do a quick video about that 701 behind me that I just finished dialing on the dyno for one of our customers, and show you the differences in, say, this aero muffler that's on this bike with the baffle in versus the baffle out. Now, many people have the misconception that there is conventional wisdom that more exhaust flow out the muffler means better performance. And sometimes that conventional wisdom is correct, and sometimes, like in this case, it couldn't be more wrong. The bike came in with this rather enormous baffle installed, but we actually had made the recommendation to go ahead and leave it in, and I'll show you why. With the O2 sensor eliminated, the air injection system plugged off, a power commander installed, and our perfect tuning on the dyno, you are looking at 75 horsepower and 50 foot-pounds of torque to the tire on pump gas. Now again, that's with the baffle in. Mid-70s to the tire and 50 foot-pounds of torque is exactly what we expect to see out of these 701 engines with a decent exhaust system and intake and our tuning in place. So let's take a look and see what happens when we pull the baffle out, and we completely redo the fuel mapping to match the new airflow coming out the pipe. With that baffle out, peak power is now down to 65 1/3 and 49 foot-pounds of torque. And a lot of times, people would go, oh, but that doesn't make any sense because the exhaust now has more airflow, so you must have done something wrong. No. Exhaust diameter being larger does not mean exhaust pulse velocity is greater. There is a point of diminishing returns where you actually start going backwards in terms of performance and exhaust pulse velocity out the pipe as you make it larger and larger and larger. The exhaust pulses will start to expand faster in the pipe than they can get out, and therefore you're actually creating back pressure at different points in the RPM range. I went ahead and overlaid the graphs here so you can see what I'm talking about. So this bike with the baffle out does actually make about 4 or 5 more horsepower right off the bottom between maybe 3 and 4,500 RPMs with the baffle out instead of the baffle in. However, the baffle out makes 10 less horsepower up at the top end and massively less torque after about 6,500 RPMs. And I'm sure some people are thinking, oh, well, you must have made it more efficient because it makes more power off the bottom and less on top now, so at least it'll be better on gas mileage. Wrong again. Here's the fuel mapping that's necessary for this bike with the baffle in. As you can see, I'm actually removing fuel at some spots here. What is that, 4,000 RPMs to about 5,000 RPMs? And even at the very, very tippy top end of the limiter, I'm adding maybe 10 to 13%. There's incredibly small value changes here at 80 and 100% throttle at wide open. Now, let's take a look at the mapping that we have built for the baffle out, and the values are massive everywhere. We're talking to 30 to 40% changes. This value right here, say 10% throttle and about 6,500 to 7,000 RPMs. We're talking 40% more fuel over stock, and I've only got 15% over stock there with the baffle in. So in this particular example, not only do you lose 10 horsepower at the top end with the baffle out, the thing is now obnoxiously loud, and you've just made it massively less fuel efficient to the tune of, depending upon where you're at in the RPM range, 20 to 40%. So now we've given this customer the option, obviously, with a map switch that is mounted up here to go ahead and run the baffle in or baffle out mapping, but we are going to go ahead and reinstall this baffle, and hopefully he just leaves it in place forever. And the reason I wanted to share all this with you guys is that I get asked constantly, I'm talking over a dozen times a day, of, well, will baffle in make my bike run better or worse, or if it's tuned for this, can I then take the baffle out? The answer is, it depends. So if you have questions about a bike or a specific bike and exhaust combination, whether the baffle in is recommended or the baffle out, or if we've tuned it one way or the other, or somebody else has and you can run it with the baffle in or the baffle out, ask. Because assuming is not always going to lead you in the right direction with these bikes. Baffle out does not always mean more power. Baffle in does not always mean less power, as we can clearly see here. That's all I've got time for today, folks. It is stupidly hot in this room, and I have about 5 more bikes I can tune before I get out of here for our weekend. So if you have any questions, please give us a call or shoot us an email at support@tooldynaworks.com. We'll get back to you as soon as we can, and we hope you all have a fantastic weekend.